Cisco show. Hey, don't touch that dial. We got a show here. Everybody's talking about taxes. You know, I got to pay taxes. Well, look, I'm very happy to pay my taxes when I know that I have a man up in Harrisburg that's looking out for me, okay? And he's a very good friend of mine, and I've known we have something in common because he's a former police officer in West Conshohocken, and it's just a guy with experience, a guy that's there looking out for us, and I mean looking out for us. So without further ado, I want you to meet Mike Vereb, and I usually introduce him like in Madison Square Garden. Mike Vereb, we're waiting, and he's an undefeated legislator from Harrisburg. So you're in Harrisburg, but tell me something about yourself.
Hank, thanks for having me. The Rock, of course, the great ambassador in Norristown. It's a thrill to be on the show.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, I've enjoyed this community, the 150th Legislative District, which I represent. But I grew up here, as you know, right out back in West Norriton here. And, you know, the 10 years in law enforcement was a great eye-opener for me, a great experience.
Good experience, right.
Absolutely. Fresh out of high school and went on to 10 years of security after that and became involved in local government in West Norriton Township. And now
Well, you would they have commissioners there? What?
Board of Commissioners. There's 5 commissioners, yes. And then Senator Rafferty talked me into running for a seat, which Representative Grijalva had vacated.
Well, he's a senator, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, absolutely. The other end of the building, as we call him.
Right.
But, you know, we're here in our first term.
It reminds me of Senator Hall. Been around a long time, right?
Well, John hasn't been here a long time yet. Senator Hall is certainly a great advocate for this area.
Right.
But, you know, we're in our first term, and we've had a lot going on.
Right, right. Okay. How about something about your family or something? Tell me something about yourself. No?
Bernadette, my wife, and I are raising our 3 children in the house I was born and raised in.
Boys, girls, what?
Caitlin, Michael, and Shane, 2 and 1. And, of course, the boys are very involved with sports and soccer right now. And
soccer,
they go to visitation. And then my daughter, Caitlin, is a sophomore at Kennedy Kenrick, which is where I graduated a few years ago. Right,
a few years ago back. Okay, now, hot issue. What do we want to talk about? There's so many things on the oven right now. I think taxes. Tell me something about what's it about now? The property tax issue.
Well, taxes are a major issue, and Hank, they're a major issue to all levels of age groups in our district and in the Commonwealth.
Right, right.
I took some great time to study what tax bill could be in Harrisburg to eliminate school property taxes as we know it here.
Right,
the average home's big part of their tax bill is funding public education. No one disagrees. We all agree that we need to fund education. And in fact, this school district here in Norristown received an increase of over $1.5 million this year, but they still had to raise taxes. People don't understand that. So we need to come up with a funding source that is more fair and more equitable to what our students need in our public education system. What that means in English to the homeowner is that we need to find out a wider and more diverse way of collecting revenue to pay for the education of our students in public schools.
Okay, now that's on a local level, right? On the local level. Now, what else we got? Local level about the theater. Something about the theater. I want to talk to you about. I know that John Doyle here at the school district, we have the theater. I just interviewed the cast. They're going to do a show by the name of Jacob, Mr. Hyde, and we're working on getting a theater in Norristown. Norristown's in the middle of revitalization, you know. We're the county seat. You can get here by bus, you can get here by car, you can get here by bike, you can get here by train. You know, there's so many, it's right here, it's the hub, you know. I remember I had Commissioner Matthews here, and he said that Norristown between Gettysburg and Philadelphia is like, what do they call that, the corral, something about the
Gateway?
Yeah, gateway in between, you know, so we got it, and it's developing, and I'm glad to see that you're taking an interest, and also the commissioner taking an interest on helping to revitalize Norristown. So tell me some of the things that you know of that maybe are on the oven, front burner, back burner.
Well, I'm a behind-the-scenes guy, believe it or not, on some of the issues going on down there. But one is the Arts Theater, the Cultural Arts Theater on DeKalb Street, which not many people know about. Well, we're going to put that on the front burner. I've worked with Senator Williams and the governor's office, and we are hoping. I am hoping.
Yeah, you need the governor. We need his help there.
Well, we need to let the governor know we have a parking garage and did a great job putting it up, but now we need something to put in that parking garage. And to me, there's nothing better to do than to relocate the theater that takes place, that exists now on DeKalb Street, and move it up onto Main Street somewhere in a vacant property. We could rebuild it to the needs of the folks of that theater and put on our local plays, which as you know, is right across from the major SEPTA hub, both bus and train, and certainly brand new parking garage, as you said on the previous show.
Main Cherry Street,
sure.
You got there, that holds a couple hundred cars. The one on Lafayette and DeKalb, the SEPTA, that holds around 502 cars. I mean, they're building garages, so that means come on in here. You got, you don't build garages for nothing. You build it because you know that something's going to happen, and things are starting to happen.
Well, we need a nightlife in Norristown. During the day, we have the courthouse as a draw, and as some people say, half the people come to Norristown leave happy, and half leave unhappy. We want people to be able to come into Norristown after hours and be happy coming and even happier leaving. And certainly the parking available and the lighting, and Chief Bono is doing a spectacular job working on the crime issue that has plagued Norristown for years, but it's getting much better. And we feel that a theater with a couple more restaurants in town will be the real draw of the average person.
Stan Husky, myself, we were talking about it, and we got a little committee together. We called Pat Mascara. He committed to help out. Charlie Tanetta committed. They went before the commissioners. The commissioner says, we'll meet whatever, they're going to match, or I don't know what it is, but they're going to come up with some green stuff, And we got other people that are, I don't want to say their names unless they come up with some green stuff, But I know that you're working on it. Maybe you'll have some kind of announcement later on, I hope, get up there and rattle some cages and get some money out here, The theater brings in different clientele people, and then the restaurant brings in clientele. I'm 84, okay? I remember we had the Norris Theater, the Grand Theater, the Garrick Theater. People used to come here, and we used to have restaurants to eat. They come here, eat, see a movie, go home. Or they would see the early show. It started at 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, they go eat, We had restaurants, But, little by little, people moved out. But now you see these parking garages, you see apartment houses coming up, the studio, movie studio coming in town. I mean, that's going to bring people. They're going to talking about building a hotel up on Johnson Highway. Mike, you're right there.
Well,
right there.
My part of the legislative district in Norristown is downtown around the courthouse and most of the Main Street corridor. And I'll tell you, the one thing I think we have to focus on is not with the past. We have to focus on what's going to draw people to Norristown in the future. We can't compare or we can't compete in the retail box store realm anymore because of the build-out that has occurred along the 422 corridor. And I think the theater brings us great opportunity, and it's one that I personally have put into the capital budget, and we got it passed. The money is there. We now need the governor to sign off of, and we could pump some serious revenue.
Arm, I call him, I got to.
Well, I think when he understands the root of this, what this funding will do.
He came in for the parking garage, and he's been.
He wants to fill the garage. He doesn't want to drive by in the future and see an empty garage.
I knew him when I worked in DA's office when he was a DA in Philadelphia, and I was a friend of Frank Rizzo, and they were, they liked each other, but they used to rib each other, Frank would always rib him a little bit, But
we hope for a major announcement with the support of some of the community partners you mentioned. The commissioners had agreed to match the funding that we would get from the state, and not just via this show, but certainly any other way we can do it. We'll remind the commissioners that we need their match funding as soon as we deliver the home run from the Commonwealth.
People turn around and say, well, he's a politician, but there's politicians are elected by the people to help people, and that's the job, okay? And, my mother, was pretty educated. My father only went to second grade, but my mother could read and write. She'd write letters galore, for different people. And she had words of wisdom, And she said, Frango, that's in Italian, Frango, watch who you travel with, And she always say, tell me who you travel with, and I'll tell you who you are, So I'd say, well, Mom, this guy's all right. No, he's not like him, So then another one, I'd say one kid who's always getting in trouble. I don't want you to go with him no more. You understand? I say, okay, Mom, but he don't steal no more. He used to get out of 5 and 10. He used to steal, He got caught a couple of times. So I said, Mom, he changed. No, no, no. He says the wolf will lose its fur but not its habits. So watch him. But I like, sometimes the politicians get a bad name. But let me tell you, you are a good man. You're right there, and I mean that. I'm proud of you. Okay, and you started from, helping from a policeman to working in the West Norton, and then now you're up in Harrisburg. I mean that's what truly a politician, and I have all the respect in the world for him. Now, every once in a while, somebody goofs up, out. That's what's good about electing them. Get them out.
Just can't forget where you put your head down at night on the average night, and that's back here at home. And it does happen. I mean, we have the whole bonus gate investigation going on, and you just have to keep your head above water. Remember where you came from, and believe me, there's plenty of people out there that want to remind me about my roots. And Hank, what you're doing for the enthusiasm in Norristown compares to what Pat Croce did for the Sixers, and I just
we had the Columbus Memorial, not Memorial service celebration, and turnout, good turnout. We have the POW, we have the zoo. We got a lot of things going on in Norristown. We've got to just make sure we focus it so that people come here for everything: the theater, the zoo, the park, the Columbus Monument, the Moore Memorial. All these things. We are the county seat.
POW, we got to plug POW. As you know, I grew up through POW in Norristown, and one of the police officers, Joe Bogdan, there, he's the godfather of my daughter, and he was very instrumental in a very important time in my life with that dirt bike track. We have 2 softball fields there now, but there's a lot of youth that I still stay in touch with from that POW dirt bike track, and we need to plug POW every chance we get. What they're doing down there, Willie Rochette and those folks, and building up and the fundraising, Donnie Zajic, and I'm proud to help them any way we can. And I think that right there is a bookend in Norristown that is one of the crown jewels that we can depend on.
I agree with you. And like I say, now, every once in a while, some kind of scandal or something. What is this, what they call it, the bonus gate or something? What's that all about? Somebody had got fingers caught in a cookie jar or something.
Well, it's a little bit more dramatic than that. Basically what it was is races down here had it too. It's using taxpayer-funded employees or taxpayer-funded resources to run a campaign. And in public reports, in the court documents, it's clearly shown that, in this case, the Democrats had used funding to win over the majority of the House last year. But let's not be foolish and say that Republicans did nothing wrong. I think that reform is great, and reform is something we should look at. But we do have a crimes code, Hank, as you know. It's changed from time to time. But when you break the law, that crimes code applies to us as elected officials as it does the average citizen. And I think that what we'll see, justice will prevail. I think we'll see our Attorney General Tom Corbett follow the evidence wherever it takes him, and not from a publicity standpoint, but follow to its root cause. And in this case, bonus gate, people used taxpayer-funded employees to come down here and across Pennsylvania to work on campaigns against, would it be against me or others down here. I can tell you that this guy is very cognizant of the law and using taxpayer funds, to do anything other than to legislate and do your legislative job is just inappropriate.
Well, the Attorney General, I get to know him when I was a county detective, a couple conferences. It's a pretty sharp guy, pretty sharp. He was a federal prosecutor, if I'm not mistaken. He was a federal, I think one of the presidents appointed him one of the federal agents. So, all right, what else you got cooking up there in Harrisburg that what people around here should know about? Something that some of the things you've been involved in.
The biggest thing in the last couple of weeks, there's 2 issues that passed. One I was directly involved in and authored the language, but the other one, real quick, is the minimum mandatory sentence of 20 years. If you point and fire a weapon at any police officer, whether it hits the officer, hurts the officer, misses the officer, you're going to jail for 20 years minimum. And that was the unanimous support of the House and the Senate. The governor signed into law. Again, it's telling the thugs on the street, the Mayday on police is over.
If he knows that, that if he shoots that or aims it or whatever, he's going to go to jail.
20 years.
I mean,
20 years. No one can change it. 20 years goes to jail. The second piece is something I advocated on over the summer in a very large way, and that's the Wiretap Act. I was wiretap certified. I know when you're in detectives, I'm sure you guys did wiretap work back then.
That's a monotonous job.
It's a very monotonous, and it's monotonous because the law restricts what you can do. It's protecting the privacy.
But what I mean monotonous, I remember when I was with the county detective, we had a guy that said, that's for hours and hours. It's really.
You're electronically living someone else's lifestyle, so you're trying to catch up on it. But what we did here was we extended the Wiretap Act. Now, the Wiretap Act tells police how to lawfully ascertain information. The Wiretap Act does not give them freedoms to just intercept anyone.
Because you could destroy lives.
If we didn't pass the extension, there would be no Wiretap Act, and anyone could record anyone, and we wouldn't want that.
No good.
But also, in the Dauphin County case, it was established that defense counsel could get anyone's phone records they want by a subpoena. And that's not what the law was intended to do. The law was intended to protect the privacy of Pennsylvanians. So what I worked on with Senator Rafferty over the summer, and he fought, and Senate leadership stayed with me all the way, as we closed that loophole. And basically, anyone that wants to get your records, my records, or any of the people's records that have phones or communicate in any way, they have to go to a judge. They have to get a judge to say yes or no. And that wasn't the case. There's a big loophole in the law, and we worked across. I got a great wealth of information over the last few months to get this legislation passed by dealing with all the DAs across the state. It's signed in the law. It's signed in the law. It's law now. And the governor was very understanding, very supportive of my language, as well as the Wiretap Act itself. But it's very important to know that what this did was protect the privacy of all Pennsylvanians. This did not enable law enforcement to get any more records that they would have gotten in the past. This restricts it even further of non-law enforcement and the records they could get.
You know, I know you're a legislator, and tell me what somebody comes up with an idea they want to. There should be. You hear guys, boy, if I was a cop, I would do this. If I'd make a law. There should be a law. How do you create a law? That's something you think that you want to make. What it like? You come up with an idea, and you get some other legislators to help you out, and you always sign it. And what's the process on that?
Well, we'll take a simple law and say you want to come up with an idea of how to make it. I mean, I tell it to the kids when I go through the school district a lot. Right. The idea you first present to the attorneys in Harrisburg. You want to make sure that what you're doing is constitutional, that it doesn't violate the Constitution, it doesn't violate anyone's rights. Once you get that approval, then you could take the next step of having it drafted into language. And you get that language or whatever your idea is, and then you send out what they call a co-sponsorship memo. That's where I want to get my former legislators to sign on board. Oh. And in this wiretap memo, when I did this wiretap issue over the summer, I had 86 co-sponsors in the first 72 hours. The first 72 hours.
Democrats and Republicans,
absolutely. Right? I had great support.
Well, you get along good with everybody, right?
Well, if you don't get along, if you don't act in a bipartisan way, you're going to be seen as a partisan hack, and you're going to be respected as such. Right. The most important part of getting a piece of legislation done, and frankly, the most important part of helping your constituents, is focus on what needs to be done on the issue or what needs to be done in your district. Forget the elephant or the donkey. Right. Focus on and building relationships. And whether it's Representative Leach, Representative Gerber, Shapiro, I have worked with Democrats and Republicans, and frankly, on a lot of this language. Representative Shapiro is a big help. We have to cross. Same thing with Norristown. Right. The only way we're going to finish Norristown off the way that people want to see it is Republicans and Democrats alike. Right. We get a Republican governor here in 2-3 years. We need to focus that governor on the needs of Norristown, just as Governor Rendell has done. Right.
So, in other words, and then it becomes, they take it to the full House and everybody has to vote on it, right?
You go up there and you stand in, my first language was the Price language.
What was the first one what was the first one you put in there?
That was the aggravated assault statute of limitations law, where Sergeant Price was bludgeoned in the street and his weapon was used numerous years later. And with the statute of limitations, basically what that is it's an amount of time that you can be prosecuted for a crime. Well, now we had it lifted. There is no statute of limitations. If you put your hand on a police officer, the only place you can hide is in a coroner's office or a grave. You can be prosecuted till the end of time if you're caught. That's if you put your hands on a police officer. So that language took me standing. I was very nervous. I was in the front of the hall of the House. There's 202 other members. A lot of members are attorneys. I'm not an attorney. But they were very respectful of my calls, very respectful of my desire, and passed the legislation unanimously, ultimately, through the House. And then it goes over to the Senate. Now, we call it the House of Lords. We make all kinds. We love the Senate, but over the Senate, there's 50 members. So the Senate has to, by majority, agree with the language that we put in and vote for it. If they do, it goes to the governor, and the governor has a certain amount of time to sign it into law, which he did with this bill. But if there's a change, it has to come back to the House for us to agree to that change. So I think that's the best way legislation could be. It takes
gives everybody an opportunity to knock it down or build it up.
Republican, Democrat, House, Senate. Absolutely. It gives everyone an opportunity to review it. And with our new House rules, there's more time mandates that says these bills, this language has to be out there for more of a public review period.
You brought a top legislator down here to Norristown. We had mind you, well, you come down to sign a bill. That was that bill that you had to sign. And he's what is he? The chairman?
Speaker of the House.
What's his name?
Dennis O'Brien.
Yeah, O'Brien. Real nice guy. You know, you brought him down and says, "Hike, I want you to meet this guy. He's the top guy up there." I said, "Oh, okay." I shook hands and I said, "Where you from?" He says, "Philadelphia." I said, "You know Frank Rizzo?" "Oh my God!" So I was a good friend of Frank. In fact, I won his pallbearers, and was a good friend. And he was a good friend, and he came to our Monjun.
Yeah, Dennis.
Monjun is something Monjun means eat a lot, and we just a bunch of fellas, maybe 30, 40 guys, friends of mine I've met through the years. Joe Rizzo, Commissioner O'Neill, and different attorneys, ex-cops, former cops, chiefs, and there's no agenda. We just everybody gets 3 minutes to say something, whatever it is, and he came there, he had a ball,
Well, Denny, we came down from Harrisburg that evening,
yeah.
And we followed each other down the turnpike. He is the Speaker of the House. I mean, he keeps order in the House and moves the legislation appropriately. And he's from Northeast Philly. He graduated of Archbishop Ryan, which of course was a rival of mine when he graduated from Kennewick. But he's a pro law enforcement guy. He's also a very big advocate of autistic children, which he had legislation passed. And I was so glad to have met him to be able to support that effort and take care of our families. We have a lot of special needs family, Rock, that need our help financially, autistic. And other children with disabilities, and part of the public education challenge is making sure that the funds come down for those kids. And I'll tell you, Dennis O'Brien clearly is the one with the biggest pom-poms on the issue for kids.
Seems like a real guy. And he's a Democrat, right?
No, he's a Republican.
Republican?
I thought
he was a Democrat.
Well, he made a deal with the Democrats to become Speaker, and these things happen.
He's a registered what?
He's a registered Republican.
Oh yeah.
And he represents his district. He's loved in his district. Yeah. Unfortunately, the last 2 police officer funerals have been right down the street from his office. But he represents his district, and that's one thing that the mentality in Harrisburg needs to change, and that is we have to, when we go home from these votes, we have to face the people.
Right,
these tax bills that would have removed property taxes for people in my district, they didn't run because of thick-headed leadership in Harrisburg, and we have to move ahead beyond it. We have to take that chance to make change, and change, as you know, change is not always accepted. You've got to fight for change. You've got to support change and embrace it. And I think that's something that we can work on in Harrisburg. And look, I did not vote for Denny as Speaker. He knows that. We kid about it often, but it wasn't, I just think he is still a Republican. He has stayed a Republican.
Right.
And, as we get reelected, so will the Speaker of the House, and I'm sure he'll run again.
I remember Frank Rizzo, when they was asking him about the death penalty, he says, I'm retired now, he says, and they said the death penalty, after you leave the police department, he says, you get mellow, and I think they ought to get rid of the electric chair. He says, I think, he says, after you get mellow, he says, I think they should give them gas. And then another one, he says, well, I think you ought to get rid of the electric chair. They use a bench, get 6 at a time. But that's an old, that's Frank's style, But that's a big issue too. The death penalty today, the way it is, 3 police officers in 1 year, and I think 2 last year. And I usually have a little ceremony. We were gonna have a little ceremony on the 23rd at Frank Rizzo's statue on the 23rd, but I canceled it because it's not appropriate to have a little party with this, with the 3 police officers in 1 year. In fact, Lynn Abraham usually speaks, and Don Giordano, and we have different, it's good. Just everybody tells a little story about Frank Rizzo, but we canceled this year. Next year we'll do something, because he did a lot for Philadelphia, a lot for police officers. He was 100% for police officers. No.
If these thugs are willing to do that to police, the fabric of our society, the absolute last thing you can do, if they're willing to do that, to execute, the last police officer was executed.
Right.
What's next? I mean, what is the next level of protection for Pennsylvanians besides our police? And, it's tragic. It's tragic what has happened. They want to blame this and blame that. The bottom line is somewhere along the line, these people felt the need to live their lives like that. And I think that's where PAL and other programs in our communities, I'm a big believer in the neighborhood build out.
Well, Norristown has quite a few immigrants, whether legal, illegal, whatever. And they don't speak the language. And I would like to see, and they got to do something, change it. I talked to Bono. They said, well, the civil service, you can't do it. But, you know, I think they should have 3 or 4 Hispanic police officers that can speak the language, to talk to some of these people, because it's pretty tough. You know, just like if you have work in certain areas, a lot of Afro-Americans. You want to get an Afro-American police officer to work, he can deal with the people, you know. And that's one thing that I remember the DA's office. We used to bar police officers on the drug, for a drug unit. So you can do the same thing here. Call Philadelphia and say, look, we need 3 guys, you know, for bar for 2 years. And you'd be surprised, the whole complexion, not the complexion, but the attitude would change when you have someone who can speak. I know myself, when I was a policeman, there was something going on down the East End, Italian. I could speak language, a little Italian. You know, I get to them, they listen to me. So that's what you got to do. Communication. That's what you do.
Well, it plugs in. It would plug into the community. Unfortunately, the civil service rules were set up to protect police officers from political intrusion.
Right.
So those same rules have an effect on trying to get someone in. They have
but
to
under
pass
emergency,
the test.
I think they should work something out. Maybe I'll work on it.
Well, you get Russell
I'll think
moving.
of something. So, hey, the half hour's over.
Went quick.
Mike, listen, thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Thanks
Rob.
a lot. I get a little bit of a
Absolutely.
say. Allah salud, like we say at the Manjun, right? Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot and here's a little token of appreciation. Watch my show here,
Awesome.
Channel 28. We're on Comcast 28, and we're on Verizon 45. We're expanding. This is my 18th year, you know. So I'm very happy that this is going on, and our show's getting bigger and bigger all the time. We're more viewers, and we're just there to help you to understand what's going on around you and be aware of what's going on. And you'll always have my words of wisdom. Keep bobbing and weaving.
We'll put this
Alrighty.
next to our Frank Rizzo picture on my desk. How's that?
Okay, thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Ray. Thank you.
Okay, and God bless. All righty.
That's very nice.